Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in today. I just want to say a little bit about our guest, Mariam Torosyan. We're going to be getting into a lot of things. Her meeting world leaders, being part of an innovative app, the CEO and founder of SafeU, which is a app for defense against women. And we're going to be talking about gender-based as well as being an impact entrepreneur. Stay tuned, guys. Thanks. Mariam, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Arameh.
Yeah, of course. I just want to get, you've done a lot with your life entrepreneurially. I'd love to know a little bit about you. Can you give me a quick elevator pitch on what you do?
So SafeU is a mobile app and AI-based platform, and we're on a mission to address violence against women and girls.
I love that.
That's what we do, and that's my mission. And I'm founder and CEO of SafeU. And I have an amazing team back in Armenia, and we're going global, as you can see.
Yeah, I actually see it's been spread out to many countries. I think if I'm correct, so Armenia, Iraq, Afghanistan. There's a couple of other countries.
Yeah, well, it's Armenia, Georgia, Iraq. Then we had Romania, Poland in European Union, and we also piloted in New Mexico and U.S. state New Mexico.
Yeah.
And we're now here in California doing our first steps.
Yeah.
As we're looking and we're preparing our launch in Glendale. That's our next step. And there are many developments also in Eastern Europe right now and in Africa, also in Central Asia. So there are many countries that you will hear in news about SafeU scaling up to new regions this year.
Yeah. No, I really love that. And I want to know, what is it that made you want to do this? Because I knew your background wasn't that aligned with what you're doing right now. So what is it that made you want to do this?
Well, my background is in human rights law. I also did social anthropology in intersection with law for my PhD research, and also public health. So all the things that I was studying somehow come together for everything that I do right now with all my passion for AI. And I also did some research in intersection of AI and public health because against women, it's a human rights issue, it's a public health issue, and it's a social cultural issue. So my background is really helpful in what I do. But how come that I started this? It has a specific story.
Yeah, I meant more so with the technology basis.
Yeah, technology basis. Well, me and my husband, we opened this boutique accelerator in Armenia back in 2016. That's when I was giving lectures also mainly in European Union countries about public health and AI, and I was very passionate about AI. So that's how my interest also for startups, for this startup ecosystem started, and I started mentoring for some startups in Armenia and also in Belgium. That's how I started getting more and more involved with technology. And thanks to my background in human rights law and public health, I was invited to lead a project for World Bank Group, finding innovations that tackle violence against women. And the findings were not very promising because I saw how civic tech actually fails and why these technologies failed, or they were unable to find a market fit, or they couldn't find the right technology to address these issues. But for me, it still continued to be a research, even though I was the findings that I had, all the statistics about 1 in 3 women being affected by physical or 50,000 women, more than 50,000 women are killed annually because of by their intimate partners or family member. And but they were statistics for me because I was doing research, even though I was also growing up in Armenia in this patriarchal society. So I know what discrimination means, injustice means. And while I was doing this research, I was pregnant. So at a family gathering, an elderly woman, she looked at me and she said, "Oh, Mariam, you look beautiful. And it is your first child, so it must be a boy." I turned to her, I smiled, I said, "Oh, it's going to be a girl." And then her there was some sadness on her face, and then she looked at me and said, "Don't worry, next one will be a boy." And then I asked myself, what's wrong with this world when one woman tells another woman that being a woman who is not even born yet is something less important or less valued? But in that short conversation, there were centuries of injustice, discrimination, all these social norms and our perceptions about the place of women and girls in our society.
Yeah.
Or maybe she didn't want her to live the same life as she had and suffer as much as she suffered. So there are so many answers to these questions. But the worst layer is, as women, we're just because we're women. And that's the saddest part. And somehow, at that moment, all these things that I was learning along my research, they stopped being just statistics. They became a reality that my daughter would grow up in. And I said, okay, there's no way I'm going to leave this research on paper. I'm going to create a solution that will be available to every woman, that they can feel safer, closer to community, and closer to resources that they need.
Yeah. No, and I actually met your daughter. She was I was at one of your conferences, and she was kind of just running around. But it kept me engaged, because I was looking at your daughter, looking at you, learning more. But so I have a question. A lot of this, I really like what you're stating. Have you ever thought, if let's just say you didn't have your daughter, you didn't have any kids, you didn't have your daughter, do you think you still would have done it? Because I understand that you didn't want your daughter to grow up in a world like that. Let's say you didn't have a daughter. Do you think you still would have done what you're doing now?
Well, one thing that I knew since I was a child, that because I was growing up in Armenia during this collapse, Soviet Union collapsed, and then there was no electricity, no water, hardship, war. And growing up, I saw the power of community and the power of how much we can resist and how much resilience we can have when we have each other, when we care about each other. And I think at school too, when I was studying, there was every single injustice among my classmates would ignite something in me. So I was always fighting for justice, for equality, even on the very basic small things at my school. So I had this calling, I would say, as a child too. But then when I grew up, that's why I started studying human rights law. That's why I was interested in social anthropology, to understand how we can also preserve cultures, how we can make sure that we understand different cultures, and that all came together in this project, and which became my life mission. I would say yes. I don't know if it would be for women, but it would be for justice, for social justice. But as a woman, I also felt like I have to stand for myself so that I can also stand for others. It's a different thing when you understand, you're growing up, you start to understand what it means to be a woman, and you want your place in this world, and you want it for other girls. So even though my daughter is who is truly inspired me to do this work, but I'm sure that me as a woman and other girls would still inspire me to pursue this path.
No, I love that. So it seems like it really is your life's calling, and that's really good, because there's a lot of people that when they were children, they didn't, if someone was being mistreated, not that they wouldn't feel anything, but they weren't thinking, this is an injustice I have to fix. Maybe this could be a future career, but that's very, I really like hearing that. And obviously with everything you do, you are running this app. It is a business for a very good cause. What do you think, in your opinion, is the hardest part about your journey business-wise?
So I'm not a traditional business person. I'm an impact entrepreneur, which means that I have to always balance between sustainability and mission. And there's a very fine line. For example, most business people will think, okay, we have to scale up this, while I'll think, let's scale deep. Let's go deeper. Let's understand the issue. And this is very important because one thing, yes, we have the business engine, which drives us. But in the meantime, the direction, our destination is always the mission. So business part is the engine that makes sure that we're not slow as, for example, sometimes non-profit sector might be slower than business. And we're not a research institution, for example. Everything we do has this business drive in it because we believe that this way we can drive our purpose and mission in a more sustainable way, in a lasting way. So that's what it means to be an impact entrepreneur for me. And the most difficult part, I would say, is to convince institutions, governments, law enforcement, international agencies to invest their efforts, their finances in a field that was historically overlooked, and there was a big lack of finances. So there's a lot of convincing work that we have to do, educational awareness raising, advocating for this. So making sure that, so it's not a business that much as you have to also play a role of this game changer that is shifting the status quo.
Really shifting culture for the better. Yeah, because there are, sectors that are overlooked that are very important. Why do you think it's overlooked?
Well, historically, we're just this, let's say, the most silent and revolution, which is women's revolution, gender equality revolution that we're experiencing. It's a very slow process, and it's a very non-process. But in the meantime, we see that the stories of women are not heard. It's a very silent epidemic when it comes to violence against women. There's lack of awareness about it, and in most of the cases, these stories are not visible. You don't see them. They're happening behind closed doors.
Mm-hmm.
And even though right now in the world we have more and more awareness about this, but the need to invest in this issue, and if you look at how much funding goes to non-profits, to social services that are providing services to survivors, you will see that it's a very, very small. And when you see the need, how big is the need, and how big is also the economic impact of against women. Only for United States, I believe it's $3.6 trillion when it comes economic burden that comes with the issue of against women.
3.6 trillion.
Yeah.
Wow,
well,
okay.
globally, World Bank estimates it's 1.5 trillion every year we lose because of violence against women. But only for United States, it goes to other like judicial costs, healthcare costs, and all of this together. So it's not only a social issue, but it's also economic issue. And if you invest, you can prevent this from happening. That's where we work. We work on a prevention side, even though the app and everything is designed the way so that we can streamline prevention prosecution programs and make sure that we're protecting women from danger. But our ultimate goal is to prevent violence from happening. So that's a very important point and goal that we have in front of us. That's why we use a lot of data analytics and AI to make sure that we're informing policymakers. And that's the, coming back to your question, that's the most difficult part, is to convince that yes, there is data now, we do have data, and now we need these policies to be changed. Now we need these laws to be changed. Now we need you to act. So bringing this political even commitment to change the situation, to invest in this issue, to enhance social services regarding against women.
I love that. So that the convincing is going to be the very difficult part. What really, impressed me about you is that you're not just in one country, one place. Just like you said in the beginning, you were able to scale this to different countries, even different continent. Africa, it's a different continent. What's the most difficult part about that? Because I would imagine scaling to different places is going to be very difficult. It's hard to scale a different city, let alone a different country.
Yes. every country comes with a different context, different cultural background, different jurisdiction, different laws to comply with. And the way we developed our technology, that every country is a separate branch of SafeU, which is a completely like segregated databases, segregated dashboard, and languages. In every country you download the app, you have different languages depending on what are the most spoken languages in those communities, or what are the goals for us in that country. For example, in Romania and Poland, we have a very specific focus on Ukrainian women refugees who are at higher risk of also trafficking and other types of gender-based. So that's where we have a lot of counseling in Ukrainian language, for example, something that we don't necessarily have in Armenia, but we have in Georgia. So we work a lot with national minorities to refugee crisis. So for every context, we have to adopt our technology for the local needs, make sure that we're connected to the local ecosystem. Those are different organizations, advocates that are becoming users of a SafeU platform and implementing this platform in their country. And then through the app, women and girls have access to the services that they provide. So it's kind of bridging their services to women and girls and enlarging the potential of their impact. And for women and girls, it's creating this unique communities where they can, through peer-to-peer discussions, also sharing their stories, sharing their inspirational stories or stories of struggle, they can also empower each other. That's what we see, communities and services coming together to help individuals. Yes, it is difficult, but in the meantime, we're able to find the way how this works. Not in every country you can immediately have access to government and start working with the government.
Sure.
You will start working with the organizations, and then these organizations will advocate this platform and use the data from this platform to advocate for change with the government, and then governments will adopt this. So it's a long process. Yes, you have to be very patient, but this kind of change will never happen overnight. So we understand that one project for us to succeed, it's not only 1 year, 2 or 3 year project for us to achieve the impact that we want in a given country.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure if you're a fan of Patrick Bet-David or not, but he always talks about, the one thing he says that I really agree with is entrepreneurs will change the world. And I really think that's true, because if we were to leave this issue, this human rights issue, to the government, even I'm going to look at it positively, even if there is a change, it will be way, way, way slower than what an entrepreneur would do, because the government's, tied by so many regulations and rules and insider politics, just so many different things. But an entrepreneur is kind of cut through all of that. Of course, it's still going to be very hard, but they don't have the restrictions all the time as the government does. So, and one other thing that I thought was very interesting was, especially in your recent conference that I was at, it's important to have a digital platform, which is what SafeU does, but it's just as important to have a physical place for protection. Why do you think that is? It's important to have a digital and a physical place for protection. What is like the bridge that's missing?
So a lot of users that we have, for example, they're not allowed to leave their homes. They are affected by domestic violence, and for them to access the existing services, just geographically, they need to leave their place to go to, for example, a seminar or to a workshop that a non-profit is organizing, but they can't go. They're not allowed to go to this kind of places. For example, they can go to school, pick up their kids, and maybe school can be a safe space as a physical space. But in the meantime, these women need access to mental health, like to psychologists that they can talk to, or if they want to divorce, for example, they need to talk to lawyers. They need to understand their situation, to do self-assessment of their situation. And all of these tools we provide online to make sure that they can start their journey. But in the meantime, making sure that if they escape, for example, there are shelters that are also part of the SafeU ecosystem, that they can find information about the shelters, not the address though, because usually the address of shelters is hidden, secret. But there are other spaces that these women can gather, and that can be like in schools or in other organizations that provide social services. And it's very important to connect. In every single country where SafeU is active, our partners who are implementing SafeU, from time to time they're organizing in-person workshops or trauma-informed therapies, because and it's essential part of building communities and bringing people together, making sure that they can access community if there are geographic or financial barriers for them, they can do it virtually, and they can every single minute be connected to this community. But from time to time also having this physical presence of your community members and advocates who are working for you, that's also very important. Sure. Understanding the limitations, of course, that not everyone will be able to do that, but this gives another avenue for them to leave the relationships that they are unable to leave because they don't know what will happen. A lot of women are also, especially 99% of cases comes with economic, so their finances, everything is controlled. To be able to escape that kind of relationship, you really need a lot of support, and that's what we are building around. We have a lot of content now on financial literacy and economic empowerment pieces that we're putting in place, understanding that just making her feel safe physically is not enough. There's so many other things that we have to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, definitely economic control. That's a big one that I've heard a lot, because if let's say you're physically fine, but you're economically controlled, you're still very strapped. Like, it's like you're kind of in handcuffs. Yeah. No. And one thing, so I want to bring up a scenario, like, let's say I'm a user of the SafeU app. Mm-hmm. Let's say, let's say a woman's she gets the SafeU app. Walk me through the steps of like what she does to feel safe by using the SafeU app.
Yeah. Let me tell you one story.
Yeah.
It's a young mother of a 3-year-old girl, and she was receiving threats from her ex-husband. She went to her lawyer, and her lawyer said, well, we have to go to police. And then she said, no, he's calling, and there are these threats, but I'm sure he will not do anything because we're already divorced, and I think he will not do anything. But the lawyer says, okay, in that case, there's this app, it's called SafeU. Download this app, put me in your personal contacts. So there's in our app, you can choose up to 3 contacts from your personal contact list, so they're your family and friends. You can choose up to 3 contacts from existing nearby service providers. Those are usually the organizations that have hotlines, helplines. And then in the app, she said, okay, choose this organization. And then also activate police button. There's you choose up to 3 contacts from personal contacts, up to 3 from service providers, and then you can also tick and activate the police button, which is deactivated. And
the service providers, so the personal is up to the person, that's fine, but the service providers, is it like the app gets the nearest service providers near them, or you have to manually enter it, or how is it?
Well, you see the list of providers, you see where they are on the map, and then you can choose them. Usually users choose those service providers that are also active on our forum section, which I will explain how that part works, because they need to build trust, and they need to have some kind of touch with these organizations to then put them in their emergency contacts. It's not happening immediately because they need to still the information that we put about these organizations, like everything what they do, their social media, their hotline, helpline. So it's not only through app that you can report cases. You can also call them or email them or message them. But okay, she said choose this contact, and then if by any chance he asks you, push on the SafeU SOS button, And then all these contacts, including me, the lawyer said, including me, will receive your location and will know that you are not safe and will come to help you. And ironically, 2 days later, after downloading the app and selecting all these contacts, the ex-husband, her and her daughter near kindergarten. And as this woman told the story, she said, no one was around to help and I couldn't make any phone calls. But what I could do is to press Save You SOS button before he snatched the phone from my hands. He didn't realize what I did. Police arrived, like the ecosystem worked. She pressed the button, everyone received the alert, and they called each other. So police arrived really timely, and they were there and convicted the perpetrator. So that's, and more than that, the audio recording, because when you press on the button, it's not only sending this dashboard notification to service providers and your coordinates to police, but it also starts to audio record the case, which can be used as a proof of incident. And at the court, it was considered as one of the pivotal. It was considered a pivotal piece of evidence. The audio recording, wow. Yes, as a pivotal piece of evidence, proving that it was an attempted. Even though he didn't manage to do much harm, because police arrived and arrested him, but it was evident from the audio recording that he was there to kill them. So that's how, on one case, you see how the ecosystem works and how the app works. App makes the ecosystem to work. And it's very also important in some countries where police might not be that responsive to cases of domestic violence, gender-based violence, to pair police with personal contact and with service provider organizations, because this way there is more kind of check and balance system control over, like, making sure that there is justice and we're maximizing the opportunity for that individual to really receive help, because it's not the case, unfortunately, always. And in most of the cases, I have to say that our users are choosing only personal contacts. They're not choosing service providers and police, because either lack of trust or because they don't want this case to
is it stigmatized?
Yes, it is stigmatized.
Okay. Yeah. Wow, no, that's heavy stuff, but I'm really happy that, there is so Save You to me is kind of like a pillar of evidence, because it does inform people around you, and the audio recording, I think, is a very good, like, did you, how did you come up with that? Like, how do you come up with, okay, we're going to inform 3 contacts and then social services, and we're going to audio record it? Like, do you what's your creative process like?
So after meeting survivors, mostly I was going to shelters, and I remember I was pregnant, and then they were telling these stories. I was getting very emotional, because when you're pregnant also you have other hormones, in place. But I had to go and talk with them. I had to write their stories and then understand what was missing at that moment, because there were women that said it was like, I don't know how, but my life was saved because I was able to escape. But sometimes, unfortunately, there were cases that they were unable to escape. And we're thinking like, okay, what is missing? What we can do? There were cases that they would say, I tried to call my mom, but I couldn't make a call because it was impossible to call, or we were somewhere I couldn't explain where I am.
It's too much.
But usually you can't call at that moment. It just takes the phone. You can't talk.
Right.
So, and then even if you call, for example, but someone is not picking up. So maximizing the opportunity, the possibility that someone will receive your alert and will report and will come to help you. In the meantime, will receive enough information about you, like where you are. It's very critical. And making sure that you are able to do it without anyone actually noticing that you just requested help. That was very important part. And then evidence, because a lot of cases, they don't get prosecuted just because there's lack of evidence. And usually if it's there are no witnesses, and there's like one person tells this, and then there are so many cases that they will say, okay, this was not a victim, but in reality this was the oppressor, perpetrator.
Oh,
so
okay. Wow.
yes,
Yeah.
though these are offender. So this is the fine line to also make sure that there is enough evidence, and also there is enough data about the case and the other behavioral data that actually they can extract from the app, because we have lethality assessments, we have safety plans for users, like for them to understand in which situation they are and to assess their situation, what should be their safety plan. These are also very important pieces of the app. Even though the most engaging part of the app is the forum section, where women engage in peer-to-peer discussions, where they get also these peer-to-peer discussions are facilitated by lawyers, doctors, psychologists. There are also rooms for psychological discussions and psychological support, like mental health support.
Like therapy support, I
yes,
guess?
Yes,
yeah, okay.
like therapy.
Yeah.
And we do have a lot of therapists in different languages in different countries that are providing this it's a community discussion, and you have a therapist, and all other users are using nicknames so they don't disclose their identity. That way they feel safer to share their stories. But for all other counselors on the app, you see their name, surname, you see a verification badge, and you can, under their name, you see their profession, if it's a psychologist, doctor, lawyer, or any like social worker, whoever is the specialist or financial coach that is providing you with this knowledge. And we also have private rooms that are available only between a counselor and user. So we don't have any chats between users.
Mm-hmm.
They're only public, so that because we have moderators and we have very strict rules for reporting any abusive content and banning users from using the app or forum section.
Does that happen? Do they sometimes engage in behavior?
If
you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, we don't have. We do have all these tools and procedures in place, but I have to say, and which is a very good thing, that our people who are using the app are really very supportive to each other. So we have never encountered the content, let's say. Some people can be not very understanding, but those who are using the app, they still are in solidarity with others, and they share very similar stories.
Wow. Okay. No, that's really good. I like that. And moving on to some of the advancements I've seen, is just very impressive. I actually did see you met President Macron of France. Tell me how that went.
Well, I was invited to be among a few young leaders to participate at the Sommet de Francophonie Summit, which was happening in Paris. And 88 world leaders came together, which is Francophonie Summit is a very big diplomatic platform for Francophone countries. And usually it happens only among world leaders, but this year they had these young leaders joining global leaders.
So you were picked.
Yeah. So and we had also this round tables. It was for 3 days. We were having these different meetings with world leaders, and I met President Macron several times actually. But that day we had this round table where I was sitting with, and I was the only woman, by the way, because usually presidents and prime ministers, they're men. So we had leaders of Canada, King of Cambodia, Prince of Monaco, and President of Romania, President of France, and Rwanda. So it was a very interesting discussion. Of course, I was there with my own agenda for women, about the importance in investing in women, investing in female entrepreneurs, and impact entrepreneurs. But the main part of my speech was, of course, dedicated to violence against women and the urgent need to address this on a very high level. Decision makers have this power to make the change, and I made sure that it became one of the items of this paper, diplomatic paper, let's say, that was created.
Yes.
I remember the speaker from our table was Cambodia, and they made sure to, and they mentioned about me, and they said that this young leader from our table made sure that we put these items regarding women and creating women-centered approaches and financing and fight against women, which was like an accepted item. So it takes a lot of course, courage and time and to speak with these people. But any platform that we have, any recognition, any like big award, any meeting with a celebrity, it's another chance for us to bring these stories, the voices of millions of women that are silenced, to be the voice for them. That's what we do, and that's how we leverage these platforms and opportunities, be it with world leaders or with celebrities.
No,
especially with world leaders, because they have a lot to do there.
Of course, no.
Yeah.
I love that. So one thing that is just, I mean, I love all of it, but one thing that is really curious, I don't know how you handle this. When I have to, speak, do any type of public speaking, I am nervous, but I kind of just think, these people will forget about me the next day and that'll be it. But you're talking to world leaders, and that's like very high pressure. Anyone would be kind of a little bit anxious, I guess, if you want to use that term. How do you push through that? Because that's something that very few people will say in their lifetimes, but you're saying it now. You spoke with these world leaders. How did you find that type of courage or confidence or grit?
Even though people, when they talk to me, say, "Oh, you exude this confidence," in reality, I wouldn't say that it's confidence, because confidence is it's a very fluctuating.
Yeah, it is.
Sometimes you're confident, sometimes you're not confident. And of course, you're nervous. You are going to speak with these world leaders. You're the only woman at the table. They're all men. They have their agenda. They know each other. They're friends. And then you are there with the issues that you want to raise in French language. And in other parts, again, like English and French, they're not my... Armenian is my language. I speak Russian, I speak French, I speak English, but only Armenian is my native language, right?
Oh, okay.
Well,
sure.
Russian too, I would say, but the language is also another barrier. Like, for example, now I speak English, but it's not my native language, so I still need to make a little bit of effort to make sure that. So, but coming back to confidence part, I think what I have is a very strong belief in what I do.
Yeah.
And a very strong belief that I have enough power to do that. And because I do have that power to make this change, because I care so much about that issue, that this gives me the confidence, not the confidence, it gives me the courage that I need to be present there. And I know that it will be impossible for me to convince everyone right away to make this change, but every single time when I'm there, I show up, I have my place at the table, I'm going to do my part, and nothing will stop me from doing that part. That's what drives me. Yes, I can be nervous, but every time I just go back to that inner source where I believe in things. And when I'm true to the things that I believe in, that I stay with myself. And that's the place, actually, from where it's a source of my courage. It's the same source where I believe in things, and the same source that gives me this courage to be standing there and to inviting them to stand with me.
Sure.
There where
Right.
I stand so
Right.
strongly. So
Right.
that's what gives me that confidence, which is not in reality confidence.
No, I definitely agree with you. The confidence thing is flimsy to me too,
Yeah.
because I definitely agree with you. I mean, I'm not as cool as you. I don't speak to world leaders, but maybe one day I hope. But but the confidence thing with me is pretty flimsy though. I wouldn't, you know how like you have character traits as a kid and then sometimes it goes with you. I was never the most confident kid in the classroom or whatever, or like in a social circle or whatever, but one thing that I was good at is persistence, and I feel like I think you have that too, and you definitely do exuded a lot of confidence, so even if you were nervous I wouldn't be able to tell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it goes back to this self-belief. I think
Right.
that's a better term for me than confidence, because this belief is connecting you to it's not, because when I'm speaking with world leaders, it's not me speaking with world leaders, it's me channeling the voices of people that need to be heard, and I have to do it. So it's more like I'm there as a door, as a mission. I'm not there to, for me to take picture or to have a video or to say, wow, I met with this world leaders. No, I'm there for a reason, and this reason drives me, and this reason gives me so much power. And otherwise, if it was just like me, let me go and tell about how amazing I am or something like that, I wouldn't be as I wouldn't have anything there. I wouldn't have that power.
Yeah.
The power comes from the purpose that you serve.
So I have a question for these world leaders that we're talking about. What's one character trait that they all have in common? Do they all really believe in what they're doing? Are they all just very intelligent? Are they all very confident, or I don't know, maybe even abrasive? I have no idea, like, because you were there. Is there something that they all share in common, character-wise?
One thing that they were all sharing in common, that they were all men.
No, that's
but
character-wise.
I know, but it just was so interesting. It was the only time that I went to a bathroom and there was like no line, but I see a line in front of a bathroom for men and no line in front of bathroom for women. Because usually wherever you go, even in the airports, you see like a big line in front of the...
Sure.
But that was the only place. I was like, wow, well, this is the only place. And this was the only like thing that, okay, you can just go to bathroom and there is no line. Nobody is there because they're all mostly men at this kind of gatherings. But it's just something funny that I wanted to share. About world leaders. Interestingly, they all have their own agenda. So I was thinking that, for example, when you have this round table, it should be a discussion. So I had the courage to go there without paper. I was just speaking because I thought I didn't have a text. I knew what are the points that I want to communicate, but I thought that I can go and read from paper because it's a round table. But interestingly, they all came with, they had this protocol people that gave them their papers and they were reading from the paper.
Oh, yeah. Like they're intel people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which probably how it should be. They're very busy people.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I felt like there's lack of real discussion. They all have their own agenda. They have their own things to say, that how great they are or how committed they are to these things or what they have done and what is their commitment. But when it comes to like collaborating around things, I can't say that I felt that unity and feeling of joining forces for something. That was a feeling that I would love to have there.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel as much as I would love to feel, because these people should be collaborating on a very high level to make things happen also on a global scale. But there's so much division also between, you know, all this politics, even though it was more, it is a diplomatic platform. Francophone is a diplomatic platform, but still you can feel the political divides there too. But I can't say that there was something similar. They all have, I really enjoyed having conversation with the King of Cambodia that knew a lot about Armenian culture, and he was so appreciative. Yeah, I know. He knew about Armenian genocide, about all the struggles, and then he said, "I know our nations are so similar in many ways because of the past that we had," and the way he talked, the way he carries himself. I would say he was a very different figure from presidents, and then you can feel the king who has a different tradition. He keeps a tradition of people, of his family, and he represents something else for his nation than an elected president. And culturally, in the way he talks, like everything was in the conversation was very interesting, and you could feel this very strong energy in this human. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Shout out to the King of Cambodia. That must be really cool, because you don't really hear that a lot, like conversing with the king, you know. That's because we're very separated from that as Americans, you know, but that's cool. Yeah. One thing I want to know is, where do you see SafeU evolving into in the next couple of years?
So we are bringing SafeU to United States. That's one very clear decision that we made, because we understand that here we can ensure our sustainability and profitability for the solution. There is a big need, because we see alarming statistics in the US, like the reports on domestic violence are rising, and we see also a clear commitment by governments on local level, like state level, county levels, the city level, and that's how we're going to work and move forward with law enforcement and with cities. So by 2030, we want to go global with the app. Before that, for the coming 3 years, we're going to expand through the regions that we already are committed, and we have partnerships in Central Asia, in Eastern Europe, continuing our European Union expansion. In African countries, we have now 5 African countries that are interested in scaling SafeU, and 3 countries in Latin America. Our business focus will be in the United States, while our impact focus is the entire world. So we aim to go global by 2030. That's a very ambitious goal. But when we were starting, everyone was saying, you know, SafeU, it's too ambitious. Nobody's going to listen to you because it's too sensitive. It's too uncomfortable.
Yeah, they all say that.
Don't go this path. It's impossible. Don't do this But then again, persistency, courage, and then this strong feeling of mission and purpose. That's what drove this ambitious journey.
So how do you push through, like, I've heard so many just throughout life. I've talked to a lot of just people that just I don't know how else to say it. How do you kind of push through that type of just nonsense that they say, like, this is too ambitious, this isn't possible? Because I hear that time and time again, and a lot of people say that to me. Like, when I'm interviewing people that have done big things, it's the same sentiment. People say this is not possible, and they're usually the people that aren't doing anything, is the constant thing. So how is that? How do you push through that? Because it does get to you. Like, I have days where I'm like, man, I don't know if, like, I could even get this next thing out. I don't know if I could take the next step. Things might fall apart. Because when you're an entrepreneur, it's you're very scared about them. At least me, I don't know about you, but me personally, I'm very scared about the next steps at times because I don't know how I'm going to make the next step happen. And there's times where you keep, hitting your, just trying and you're persistent, and then you see nothing is going right. But then, 2-3 months later, something goes right. And then you're like, okay, that's why that had to happen. So how do you keep pushing?
Well, so right from the beginning, I knew that it's not going to be an easy path.
Yeah, of course.
And I know that every day it's a challenge, like even with this government funding cuts, with all this international situation changing around, all these humanitarian issues, social issues. And I kind of knew that this is the rise of autocracies everywhere in the world, and that all are big, big challenges for us.
What do you mean by rise of autocracies?
Like the countries that are there are more and more autocratic regimes in the world. Like we see that it's unfortunately going to that direction in many countries.
Yeah.
And it's a big challenge for gender equality.
Sure.
And for a lot of other issues, environmental issues,
right.
Because it's less caring about people and more caring about economy, or not even economy, but about other class. So what I think is the most important, again, what drives me, and I think what drives me is way more persistent, present, and stronger than anyone who will stand in front of me and say that it's impossible.
Yeah.
And it's not only people saying impossible. Many people also attack me because they don't like what I do. They don't like the image of a woman who is an entrepreneur, but who is also working in a field that is somehow they feel like it's against men. While it's not against men, it is for humanity, because we're not doing this against men. We're doing this against the patriarchal norms and structures that are equally harmful for men and women. They're equally harmful and for men and for women. And the things that we're fighting against is violence that is equally harmful for men and women, and more than that, harmful for our generations to come, for kids that are living in that kind of environments. So it's and that's why I get also a lot of attacked by some groups of people, but in the meantime sometimes not accepted by tech ecosystem, because what I do is not like I'm not solving a business issue. Where is the business there? Maybe you're a non-profit, maybe you're this, or go. I mean, there's a lot of also not struggle, but some ecosystems have a hard time in accepting me because I'm a woman, or because I'm an impact entrepreneur and not entrepreneur, because I'm a woman in tech, but the tech that I have is not a fintech. It's not, even though there is an AI that we're using, but the AI that we use, it's for social cause that is placing us somewhere else. So there is not only people telling, oh, it's impossible, but people are also not accepting this as part of their ecosystem, while it is part of their ecosystem. Right. But in the meantime, I know that every day I'm going to hear the same things, that it's impossible. But one thing that I can do is to show that it's possible and how it is possible. Of course, we'll knock 100 doors and only one will open, or even that one will not be open. But I know that there will be doors, and I know that we know the ways that how we're going to open these doors. Just because I know that there are people who need this. The need of this is what makes it possible, not people who say that it's impossible or possible.
Right, yeah, because if you were to listen to the whims of other people, then you couldn't.
Then we're not going to let these people die, or we're not going to let these kids to live in the families that they see only insults and they see disrespect. And I have met with kids whose fathers kill their moms in front of their eyes. This is not something that we as society, we as humanity want to let happen.
Sure. No, it's definitely a heavy topic, but it is something that, that I'm happy you're talking about. Sorry, what?
Yeah, and I'm saying that there should be people coming together who believe that it is possible to change, who understand that it's not easy to change, but who believe in this possibility and who work every day and night to make this change happen. And I'm just standing in that line. I think and I feel that it's possible, and I'm doing my part.
No, I definitely understand that. No, I definitely. Yeah, it's a big mission, and I'm happy to see. I actually wanted to know that doing this type of work, has it like fundamentally changed your view of the world? Like, are you more bitter or more resentful or more hopeful or more joyous because of the work you do? Because, like, for example, if I was a criminal investigator, I would probably have a more bitter view of the world eventually because I deal with such heavy things. Or did it not affect you like that?
I think it didn't affect me like that. Of course, I am more... I think I have a lot of energy to spend on compassion every day. So I see that sometimes it's draining, like the stories that I hear and the urgency, sometimes that I feel this urgency that we are not doing this enough, we're not funding this enough, we're not invested enough, we're not committed enough, we as society. So this makes me a little bit, creates this feeling of urgency and not doing enough, that feeling. But in the meantime, thanks to the team that we have, because what I do, I started it, the first person who joined me is my best friend, and we are friends since we were 16. We were classmates at the French university, and there's so much joy in the way we do it. Of course, we understand that it's hard and it's very stressful, but the way we do it, and other team members who joined us, we were able to spread this culture of doing things with joy, doing things, if there's anything that we can laugh at us or at the things that are happening, or if there's anything that we can celebrate, we'll take the moment to laugh, to do things with joy, and to celebrate. If there's anything that we can celebrate, we always choose to celebrate. So that's something that we have culturally in our company, in our organization, that makes us very resilient. And in other parts, we're very compassionate, but it's just the way we are. I think it didn't change my worldviews, and I am very hopeful just because I'm working on a solution part. I know that there is a problem, but I know that I'm working on a solution, and it makes me hopeful and fulfilled.
No, I love that. I want to get into two more things, and then we'll be good. Tell me about your experience at NYU. We were talking about it a little bit off camera, and I thought it was very, it's cool and impressive. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, next week I'll be in NYU, and my colleague Lilith, what we're talking about, she will join me there. We're graduating from NYU Stern Business School program called Endless Frontiers Lab. So they researched more than 7,000 startups globally, and then they selected 300 best startups, and then they interviewed these startups. And there are about 30 startups right now in the program. It was 6-month program. And so all of their startups are from United States, only one from European Union, from Sweden, and one from that tiny little dot, Armenia.
That's you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And every time they show the map, like all these companies from US, and then one from there, Armenia. And everyone was thinking, Armenia? Where is Armenia? Oh, you are Armenian? And we're the exotic part of this. And interestingly, we're the first Armenians for most of these people that they have ever met. And they learned a lot about Armenia, and a lot of people want to come and visit Armenia, which is great. So we're part of this, and we're graduating, and probably we're also going to receive an award as one of the best women-centered and a startup led by women. We'll see that next week. Sure. Yes, and after that I'm traveling to Japan to receive another award from Cartier Women's Initiative as Impact Awardee. And in Japan, Japanese government and Cartier Women's Initiative have this women's pavilion at World Expo 2025. And I'm going to be featured there among 12 people changing the world, which is a great honor for me, and again for Armenia, because it says Mariam Torosyan, Armenia. Yeah. And with some box champions, writers, and some incredible people.
No, I mean, we've been taught as kids, like my parents taught me, I'm sure your parents too, like with our culture, we've been through so much, like Armenian genocide, everything that happened in Azerbaijan, deportations, and just really bad circumstances, to always, hold the Armenian name in high regard. So that's very respectable. I love that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course. And my last question is, what keeps you up at night?
What keeps me up at night is what keeps me going. So it's, again, the urgency of the issue, the stories that needs to be heard, women who need our support today, kids who need our support today, like all of these things that keep me going in the morning, they keep me up at night. And also because I work, and different time zones. Sometimes I have very night calls, very early morning meetings, but that's what it takes to build something for humanity.
Incredible. No, I love that. Where can people find you?
Well, people can find me on LinkedIn, on Instagram. I'm Mariam Torosyan. For professionals, better LinkedIn. That's where they can find me. And I'm very happy if anyone wants to join our team, join our efforts, fund us, donate to our programs that we're doing in different parts of the world with different organizations. So any help, support, encouragement, we're more than happy to receive, and to also join you if you need our help.
Perfect. I love it. Thank you. Okay, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Please comment down below what your favorite part of the interview was, and subscribe. Thank you, guys. See you next one. Peace.